Okay.
Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Ian Carter, Vice President of the States of Alderney. Ian, good to see you.
Hello there. Hello, Tony. Very good to see you. Very pleased to see you.
Can we kick off by talking about your duties as Vice President?
Well, I think it's a bit like I said at the States meeting. It's a bit like a battery, ever ready. You hope that you'll never have anything to do, but there is very little to do other than step in when the president needs something done that for whatever reason he may be away, he conflicted
Mm,
or whatever, and you're there to step in at that point. And one thing I've just been doing to help him out is that there's a group of French um, sort of the relations of deportees from the Marseille area, and they're very keen that they could have perhaps some form of recognition here that some of them were sent here, and it's just easier for me to contact them and talk it through than it is for him. So that's but a lot
yeah.
a lot of what the vice president's role is in effect defined in law, in that it's the president only can do things.
So unlike the US, it's not a heartbeat away.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But no, I would hope not. And but ever ready, ever ready.
Ever ready. That's good stuff. Let's get on to the dreaded subject of taxation, Ian. Heidi Soulsby, when I interviewed her a few weeks ago, said that, in her view, GST was probably never going to happen now. Um, the I was quite against the concept because I thought it hurt poor people more than it hurt wealthy people for obvious reasons. But there was a clear line that Alderney would actually be making a contribution there, wasn't there?
In terms of what? Sorry,
Well,
of
in
of
terms of us paying GST on goods
yes,
bought
yeah,
over here and the
yeah.
money going back to Guernsey revenue. So, assuming that GST doesn't proceed, how do you see Alderney actually making a monetary contribution to the states of Guernsey?
I think it seems the mood music coming out of the P&R committee and Mr. Trott is that income tax looks to be his tax of choice, if we can put it that way. And obviously, from the perspective of people who work in Alderney, we
Yeah.
are in fiscal union. We will be part of that.
Mm.
I don't think, I don't think we as a jurisdiction will be coming up with ideas. I just don't think that's realistic. But I think what we will do is obviously, as happened with the GST, we'll take a view on what is proposed. And though the GST on its own last time round would, as you rightly say, perhaps affect those in the lower income brackets more so, when it was packaged with the revisions of Social Security, that really wasn't the case overall, and those on those in those lower sort of monetary bands, they would have actually been better off. But that boat has gone. So I think it would seem to me that income tax is probably the way that P&R in Guernsey will want to go forward. And I think, as always, the devil will be in the detail as to how you make it equitable, fair,
Yeah.
and that there is benefit.
Do you see it as 22% against your income, less allowances, or a graduated situation like you've got in the UK, where if you're earning 60,000 a year plus you go up into a higher tax bracket?
It always strikes me that cliff edges are never a good thing. Somebody just earning £1 more suddenly hits.
Mm.
Although with tax, obviously the cliff edge is not quite the same in terms of like some of the benefits where you suddenly are and you do or you don't get a benefit, and the cliff edge there of saying, okay, the higher band, you would then be taxed at that higher level at that point. But I think from my perspective, and I'd like to see models before I would commit myself, would be a more gradual banding than that sort of large amount at a certain point on the salary scale.
They've got a bit of encouragement here from the Isle of Man, haven't they? Because the Isle of Man have recently announced that they're going to
Yeah.
put up their income tax rates.
But they have, and they also have well, they have VAT.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
they're so your average Isle of Man citizen is being perhaps attacked from several quarters. Once again, it comes back to perhaps those conversations that need to be had about whether we have the services we want at that sort of level, but if like the tax levels are lower, and that's a difficult conversation perhaps to have with people.
Yeah.
And the one I was just going to say, one key thing is what you want is that the more money spent in the bailiwick on bailiwick productivity, that must be better in terms of retaining that funding within the bailiwick. I think there's a figure put out: every pound spent in a jurisdiction produced within the jurisdiction, at least 80 pence of it is retained. Every pound from something bought in by Amazon, well, that's 40p is retained. You just don't have the money doesn't go around the system in quite the same way.
No, I can see where you're coming from on that one. Let's get on to the subject of Aurigny. Their record, as far as Alderney is concerned, is pretty shocking. Delays of 1 in every 11 flights. And, I just don't see how they can justify it. Now, if you take the public service obligation, you've seen that, have you?
Well, it's a £2 million per year.
Yeah, but are there any penalties?
Penalties, not as such, no.
Because you normally expect, if somebody has a monopoly and they get things wrong, and you get this example with the railways in the UK, they get fined for being late and this sort of thing. And it seems to me all that Aurigny have got here is a 5-year monopoly, which runs out next year, which entitles them to do whatever they like. They're certainly not providing a minimum service, in my view.
I think the model itself is, well, I could charitably say fragile with just 2 planes. I think with 3, it would be manageable, more manageable. But I think what hasn't been factored in perhaps sufficiently is that those planes have aged. And obviously, in terms of simple maintenance, more has to be done. And that was not factored in, certainly to the 2-plane model. It is, and I think a grave problem. I mean, I would agree with the CEO of Aurigny. One of the things that he said, I think it was either yesterday or Saturday or Sunday, he wants a decision made on the runway here. That way he can move forward, we can move forward, one way or the other. At the moment, I think we're in limbo land, and as you rightly have highlighted, the level of service with the 2-plane model is not sufficient for the island.
But you see, they seem to be over-ambitious in so many departments, Ian. I mean, take this afternoon, we're recording this on Monday, okay? They've got 5 planes flying out of Guernsey to Stansted, Southampton, London, Gatwick, Exeter, Dublin in 50 minutes. But they haven't got 5 planes, have they?
I don't think, not ATRs, no.
They got three ATRs and a jet. So they're obviously having to charter aircraft at the moment to make these extra services run. And, it just seems to me to be a small airline trying to be a big boy and not succeeding.
He's trying, but I mean, the last quarter, I mean, and again, we've seen this, and I got no reason to disbelieve it. They were in profit.
Yeah,
now,
but who's paying who's making the profit? It's the ordinary citizens.
At whose expense?
Yes, absolutely.
But it still is the case that without that PSO in place, we would unfortunately be paying even more for our fares potentially.
But perhaps we'd be dealing with another provider that had a better idea, of how to run the thing. Who knows?
Well, we just don't know on that. I mean, and when it was put out for tender, there was nobody else who
at the time
a realistic option.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get on to the runway then, because
yeah,
in the Heidi Salisbury interview, I said to her, I understand 25 million was committed with a 10% increase, to cover contingencies. But she, my thoughts were, if it exceeds 27.5 million, what happens? And she said it goes back to the States for further debate. It seems to me that could well happen. Now, has Alderney got a plan Z? Or do you just have to go along with Guernsey on it totally?
I mean, I was quite interesting just watching the scrutiny panel that met with P&R when asked about the Alderney Runway, there was a very wry smile from Heidi Salisbury about when the cost of 26 million was quoted. I think she is highly sceptical that we'll get to that figure. In terms of Plan Z, we're in the position, obviously, of the commitment that was taken at the time in 2022 was to go back to the States of Deliberation if it was above that figure, and they are beholden to do that. We can't stop that. That's what the States of Guernsey deputies voted to do. I think the one area that we have to be were careful of initially was when we committed that we would contribute 3.5 million towards it. That was specifically and in the States of Alderney's resolution to the C+ option. So if we are then in a situation where another option is now being put on the table, then a contribution of the States of Alderney could be made, but I think we would have to go back to the start point again to decide, well, what can we afford, what is realistic for this particular time. The idea of that resolution back in 2022 was to not quite hamstring future States of Alderney's, but to try and protect us that if C+ doesn't take place, then we aren't in that position of 3.5 million being contributed to anything that might be proposed.
As a senior politician, have you got any idea when they will actually announce the figures for these tenders?
I think you say the word senior politician. I think that's being very kind, but I don't. Obviously, don't. All I'm aware of is that there is a lot of sort of revised, what they call it, valued engineering, re-engineering taking place with regard to the actual methodology of what's been put in place from the tender documents, and that when that's ready, then that will go to STSB, and then we will hear all of us at the same time. I think we might be given a day's grace before it goes to the public, but that's all I can say. I'm afraid I know no more than you on that.
I'm afraid that a lot of people over here are a bit sceptical, thinking that the plane will come here, go to Guernsey, put a few more passengers on board, and then go to Southampton. We won't see the sort of service that we've got at the moment.
Well, given that you've said the service we've got at the moment isn't good enough, at least you would have a service, because you've got more planes actually available to you if there are issues potentially.
Not based on this afternoon, yeah.
No, but no, true.
But he's going to get some more.
Then the operating model, that's down to Aurigny to develop to satisfy what will be a different operating model for Alderney within their overall one aircraft type.
Yeah. You're confident that it'll sort itself out?
I would say that would be a very dangerous word to use, is confidence. I would
hopeful.
I am ever hopeful, always glass half full rather than glass half empty. Otherwise, you might as well pack up and not try and do things.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Let's get on to the Harbour, this regeneration scheme. Are you able to tell me how much the report cost?
I don't think I am, but I'm not sure why not. I don't think I'm supposed. But I don't think I should.
Okay, but the skeptical citizens, as we all are, tend to sort of think you pay vast quantities of money for these reports, read them, and then file them, and nothing much happens.
Well, I think from my perspective, a report of this nature and the level it's at is effectively a document that potential investors can look at and see that there is some organisation plan in place in order for this whole area to be developed. It's not just sort of like a shotgun effect, or we'll do a bit of this here, a bit of that there. And it gives that framework for future states. Now, necessarily, you'll say the biggest weakness, of course, is that future states can just ignore it. But at least if you've got a fairly high level and detailed plan of action, and I quite accept that the feedback that people gave was, well, there's no financial background to this. No, there isn't, because to some extent, when you go as you'll be aware, go out to the market for whatever projects are prioritised, that's when those financials have to be then developed, and we don't have the resources to develop financial plans for that, all of those potentially very exciting ideas in one go. So there will be an iterative process of trying to work out what is the highest priority, what can be done, quick wins, and then the really hard work of business cases that need to be developed and are realistic.
The States owns all of the land, doesn't it?
I would have to, you would have,
Well,
I think,
all of the yacht park. You know where I mean?
I think it does. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have an encyclopedic
No,
knowledge of
no. I'm not
it's
expecting you, but
yeah.
on that premise, um,
Mm.
presumably all that would happen would be that the states would grant leases to the various
Well,
developers. You're not going to sell land, I wouldn't have thought, are you?
I would doubt that immensely. But one of the things that we've also done over the last year is to put in place a proper asset management register, in which would then from that needs to be developed a proper asset management plan. Now, obviously, as people will be aware, you in an asset management plan, you may decide that some elements assets could be sold, others you may definitely want to keep, and so forth. So I wouldn't want to sort of sit here and commit absolutely that the states would not sell anything, but I would doubt it. And whether it be leases, I don't know. There are potentially perhaps other means by which developers can take if you like take partnerships with the states, or perhaps not even with the states, in order to make those developments happen. And I think that's why we've got to keep a pretty open mind as to how one would take the actual developments forward.
But the thing is, of course, that any developer is going to have to raise finance to actually
Yep.
do the work, and they're going to want to see a bit better than the usual States of Alderney 20 years.
I think that those are exactly the issues that would need to be put into those business cases and the offer that would then come up. I mean, whether you ran a particular competition, for want of a better word, for a particular development, and you put forward your sort of range of your offer, and you find that you don't get any takers, then obviously you know that that's not going to work. But I don't think you can necessarily say, well, I certainly couldn't say at this stage, we must have 999-year leases, 125 or whatever. Because I think that by doing that we're not at that stage yet in any shape or form.
No. But I'm sure you agree that most developers aren't going to be interested in just 20 years.
No, I would, yes, absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
What happened to the marina?
Well, there is a marina in there in that plan.
Right.
On the high level plan there, it's there's an extension to commercial quay, and then on the other side of it, there's a space for a small marina with separate walkways. It is in there. It is one of the options that could be delivered.
But you'd have to extend the quay to make that work, would you?
Yeah, and I think the idea of the extension of the quay is so that you've got improved docking for commercial shipping, potentially small passenger ferries, maybe small cruise ships as well. So and again, it is trying to think through, if you do one, like any sort of mosaic or like a game of chess, if you move one piece, you've got to be very aware of what the perhaps law of unintended consequences are for other aspects of the way the harbour works. And that's where the plan and the people behind it and the work they did, I think it appeared to me, was of good value.
There was a gentleman involved, wasn't there, in putting a marina together? That's all fallen apart, has it?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
I think there was an article in last week's Guernsey Press, because I think that was a marina not in the Bay Opportunity area.
In the Arsenal end, yeah.
The Arsenal end. I mean, it's I think that's that's where we are. The Bay Opportunity area is defined in the land use plan as that area that goes around the bay, but not the Arsenal. So that was the delineation, the planning.
Just wanted clarification on that. Let's get on to Alderney Electricity. The states are supporting the proposals, presumably, which are wind, solar, storage. How do you fund all this? Have you got any ideas?
I haven't, because AEL are the actual developers.
Yeah, but you're the shareholder.
What we're looking at would be, for example, financing through the Guernsey bond is a potential option, I believe, where we can borrow from it. Though again, in the coming years, and again, the plan from when we've had the consultation, that will determine that's what the precise plan of action is. That is an option. I'd say I would then take the advice from those advisors we have, strategic finance advisors, as to how best we do that.
Yeah. Okay. Do you
I
think
mean, I
there's
think
going to be much? Sorry. Do you think
I was
it's
just going
going
to say, I think, sorry.
Please go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
just going to say that I think the biggest problem often is that the phases of technology come in waves, and you can get in the situation where you've got a potentially high input into making change, and it does take that length of time to get the return. And I think that's where the key to the financing will come, as to how you demonstrate that, in order that those that want to develop will actually get the return they want. But the most important thing is that we as an island get the return we want, which is cheaper energy, and ideally from renewable sources. I think we'll always have to have a diesel backup in the background there, but that should not be necessarily the ultimate and fundamental source of our electrical energy production.
It's all about energy security, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got solar winds, that sits here day in, day out, as we're looking out the window now. Fuel, diesel, that comes in on a boat, and all the issues of whether you got just even access to the oil that you need, but equally sizes of boats and things start to become an issue coming into the harbour over the coming years. But that's for the.
But Ian, all in all the states members are behind it, are they, in terms of
my impression
concept?
Is that there's a backing for that sort of 3x3 proposal that's been put into the public domain.
Yeah. Okay. Traffic questionnaire. There's another example of pieces of paper floating around and possibly nothing much doing about it. Why can't you get the police to enforce yellow line parking? Because that's part of the problem, isn't it?
I would agree totally. One of the reasons is that our quality of yellow lines is not good enough, and that then comes back to the states making sure that the yellow lines are absolutely in place as they should be. Because a defence in law which has been used is that because the line is incomplete, it's been rubbed out a bit somewhere, that's actually a defence against prosecution. So we need to get our act together in terms of getting proper lineage, signage, etc. in place. Then I think it's easier, and it is easier, then for the police to do their job.
But surely it's an offence to obstruct the highway.
That I would agree. And
there are various pinch points, which I won't go into in fine detail as to where they are, but we both know where they are, and they should really, the police should be saying to these people, move on.
I agree. We've had meetings, GSC have certainly had meetings with the police and asked them to do so. I'm not sure, and I'm sure Lynn Morris, as chair of GSC, she takes the lead on this, that to have those conversations maybe at a higher level in Guernsey to as you say, action what's going on. We know there's 3,020 vehicles on the island, which is a fair old few, and obviously when you come to size of vehicles, that starts to now become an issue, because of the roads aren't built for what the size of vehicles are now, or vehicles that some people want to bring in, and I think we do need to consider how we perhaps approach that in terms of small vehicles. How do we make people make the decision to have a smaller vehicle than a larger one, and that's maybe through tax. I don't know.
I mean, part of the problem is electric vehicles.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of weight.
They're heavier than petrol / diesel. Also have a much higher disposal charge, because I don't think we've yet, and I don't think Guernsey have yet, worked out how to dispose of the batteries at the end of the life of the car safely. So there is, again, I think, work to be done on that, on the management of electric vehicles on the island. And arguably, of course, yes, it might make you feel good that you've got an electric vehicle, but we all know where the electricity on the island comes from. It comes from hydrocarbons.
Yes, absolutely.
We can do our best.
Yeah.
I don't think we can go down the route. I think they've just done this in Paris, where my son lives. It's now £200 a day parking fee for an SUV in central Paris to try and stop them coming in. And from his perspective, he says it seems to be ineffective in that the metro seems to be a lot busier. But £1,000 a week for parking, that might be quite interesting for people.
Suggesting it here.
No, no, certainly not.
Let's get on to the actual cost of running the States. How many have you got on the public works payroll these days? People.
I don't know, because that's very much a sort of operational issue, and obviously the chief clerk he's there to run the public sector, those who work for the public sector. I can't answer that question, I'm afraid.
I'll tell you why. Under Roy Burke, there was 13 redundancies. Some
Yeah,
of them got good payoffs and a pension within about 6 months, so that didn't work particularly well. But I just wonder, are we back up to the establishment number that we had prior to those redundancies?
Well, one, as I say, I don't know what the establishment number was prior to those redundancies. I think certainly what we look for is that we've got the right people with the right skills in the right place. Now, the way perhaps things are done can actually reduce headcount because you can do things more efficiently. So I don't think I can really comment as to whether to say prior to those redundancies back in, what was that, 2014, 2013?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
That we got the same number of people because we may just do things differently. And so that doesn't need so many. Or conversely, there are other things that people, there's expectations of what we should be doing, and that actually increases headcount. But I can't answer your question precisely, I'm afraid.
Okay, not to worry. Affordable housing, Whitegates, the old Connaught. Any further progress on that?
And one of the things we've taken to the law officers is that this problem of leases, lenders not lending on properties with leases to actually change the law to such an extent that we can effectively not make that a barrier for borrowing. Yeah. So that would potentially free up, if you look at the number of leasehold properties on the island, of that comparatively smaller, lower level of costs, which are perhaps starter homes or apartments, flats, that would help there. We looked at reinventing or instigating the old bank system. That would appear now, because of the change in regulations, States Alderney would then become a bank, of a lender, and that does have potential ramifications with regard to how you actually undertake lending to people,
which wasn't the case at the time.
No, and likewise, there's the issue of fairness. If somebody wants to borrow money to build a house, well, why Mrs. X wants to do that. Mr. Y actually says, well, I'll borrow the same amount of money just to contribute to me buying a house.
Yeah, sure.
Why do I have to? So we've investigated that, and at the moment that does not, we can't reintroduce that. So I don't think from that perspective, getting rid of leasehold issues of borrowing is a help. But in terms of Whitegates itself, plans have been drawn up. Well, not drawn up, but ones that were in the past. There are several sets of plans, and it is just a case of taking those forward for options to how you then actually finance them. And Whitegates itself is actually zoned as being for for social housing, I think, at the moment. Yeah. There might be, and so again, we're looking at whether you can rezone that. Does that actually help us make it more accessible? I think the buildings themselves cannot be used for human habitation. I mean,
got to be knocked down.
That I think is quite plain.
Yeah. Talking about things that have holes in them, what about the road surface?
Too many holes, and I think again,
you're following the UK pothole route.
Yeah, I have, but we can't follow necessarily the UK sort of reaction to it, where they are spending quite a lot of money.
But you've got a lot of money already allocated. So what's the hold up?
The hold up is the Guernsey procurement process, because it's nearly £1 million worth of money over the next 5 years. We have to go through the proper procurement process in terms of advertising across UK, Jersey, Guernsey. And then that will have to then go to the Guernsey states because it's a level above the 250k level. I think we've been held back because there was this sense that if the airport went ahead, there could be cost benefits from asphalt being laid on the roads, laid on the airport. That again is gone. That's not going to happen. We are looking at whether we can get a small asphalt producing plant over here quicker in order to do some of those absolutely essential pothole filling or
trench
road repairs that do need to take place. But we are somewhat hamstrung by the dreaded words process and procurement, and there is not a host of companies wanting to actually come and put down asphalt in Alderney or in Guernsey for that matter. It's not a popular activity, I guess, because there's not so much money to be made from it as there has been in the past.
Yeah, okay. Let's move on to a sporting activity, the Alderney Shooting Club. I believe there were some issues there. Have they all been resolved?
As far as I know, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. This was over safety, was it?
I'm not aware of safety at all. No, I really don't know what's when you say issues. I really don't know what you're referring to be honest.
Well, I just had the impression there were certain states members that were anti the idea of having a shooting club.
Not that I'm aware,
Okay.
and I certainly aren't. So because I mean, if you take say the Island Games for example, I mean they've been great. It's a great sport in terms of interesting young people, particularly into a very disciplined sport that they can undertake. I mean, my past life, I was a master in charge of shooting at a school, and taught kids how to shoot 2.2 target rifle.
The
and
works.
It was shot at Bisley. A good sport, which I would do everything to encourage.
Let's get on to health integration. How do we oldies get to the hospital if the IMC is going to be moved down there?
Well, I don't think I'm at the moment. There's several sort of schemes, I suppose, that HSC, and we're into acronym world, the Health and Social Social Services Council Committee are putting together with the civil service both here and in Guernsey. So before any plan would actually take place, there will be a full consultation to say to people, well, these are the options, and this is what this will give us, this was what that will give us. And I think, again, looking at today's Guernsey press, one of the key issues is we are, as a bailiwick, have this aging population. We have not just aging population, but higher demands on health issues and health within both islands, and it's trying to deliver the best we can, and we're dealing with an incredibly complex problem in Alderney to some extent, because you've got public sector HSC, you've got private providers, you've got charitable components. It is a real knotty problem, and the ability, as you say, to get to the MMH, to the Mignot, is difficult as it stands. But you arguably, if you change the entry there, you can make it more open. That does give another that helps that. But as you say, the downside is many people, it's much easier just to walk in the Val car park and park there.
That's where the bulk of the population is.
And the bulk of the population does live in St Anne. But it will be an area that will need a lot more work done on it before any formal consultation can take place to allow the community to say, well, no, this won't work, and these are the reasons why it won't, before we can come to any decision. Unfortunately, most of that, well, as with health related issues, the underlying issue is one of resources and funding to try and get the best bang we can from the buck. That we do actually get a decent return on the investment that we make, and that people will, as a community, be better. That's got to be the key aspect, is that whatever we do is for the benefit of the community and community public health.
Any news on the swimming pool?
Only in so much as I said, we're undertaking producing a proper asset management plan and register and then plan for the island, and looking again at that wider issues of, for example, provision of leisure spaces, whether it be for drama, music, different sports, etc. And once that's been undertaken and completed, then I think we'll have a much clearer view as to what we can do. And again, the swimming pool is a high priority for many people, both from the perspective of leisure and health.
But you
So
don't reckon on using that building that was put up at the school?
I think it would be quite difficult.
Right, okay.
I don't know. I mean, I believe that there are proposals that it could be modified, but I think it's much better to take that sort of take a step back and say, well, what do we need and where could it go and best provide for the long term, rather than saying here's a quick fix which might do us for 10 years. So I wouldn't discount it, but I certainly would say that we would need to be very careful in making any decision that might just leave us with a short-term benefit, rather than perhaps that longer-term view that might be more helpful.
Yeah. We've only got 2 minutes left, so very quickly, governance reform. Any progress?
No, I think the rational reason for that is simply law officer time, which has just, with Moneyval that's been going on in Guernsey, we've not been given the law officer time we need to develop the ideas that over 2 years that we've written.
Okay.
So it's a case of watch that space, I'm afraid, on that.
Obviously, you're all concerned about the fact you may not get anybody to stand at the next election. Is it true that there's a bit of bullying takes place in PNR?
I don't think the word, well, bullying's a very serious word. I mean, obviously, my previous life in schools, I dealt with bullying time and time again, and it's the perception of the person being bullied. If they feel they are, then they are being bullied.
Heated discussion then.
I think yes. I mean, one person's sort of vigorous and maybe very passionate view of an issue may to somebody else feel overbearing. Now, if that is the case, they should say so. Certainly, if I'm chairing a meeting, I would raise that issue at the time.
Nip it in the bud, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there we are. Well, look, I'm sorry we've run out of time. Dreadful. But thank you so much for sparing me some time this afternoon. I've enjoyed our conversation as usual.
Good.
And we'll have another one some future date to talk about further developments.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ian. All the best. Thank you.